June 26, 1943. 27,000 feet above the French countryside, Second Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson's P-47 Thunderbolt was disintegrating around him. 21 20-millimeter cannon shells, over 200 machine gun bullets, the canopy shattered, controls failing, a lone German FW-190 pilot positioned for the kill shot and then stopped, out of ammunition. The German pilot pulled alongside, stared in disbelief at the flying wreck that refused to die, gave a salute, and peeled away. Johnson's Thunderbolt limped home across the English Channel. What the Luftwaffe discovered that day would transform their mockery into terror. March 10, 1943. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt flew its first combat mission over France with the 4th Fighter Group. Source: Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, P-47 D-30 aircraft file. It was a disaster. Radio problems plagued the formation. No enemy aircraft were engaged. The massive American fighters lumbered back to England, having accomplished nothing. German intelligence officers reviewing reconnaissance photos couldn't suppress their amusement. At 10,000 pounds empty weight, the P-47 was nearly twice the weight of a Messerschmitt Bf-109. Its barrel-shaped fuselage looked like it belonged on a cargo plane. British Spitfire pilots, watching from their own bases, privately questioned American sanity. But what neither the Germans nor the skeptical British understood was that Alexander Kartveli, Republic Aviation's Georgian-born chief designer, hadn't tried to copy European fighters. He'd built something entirely new, a high-altitude juggernaut that would rewrite the rules of air combat through brute force, overwhelming firepower, and nearly indestructible construction. The XP-47B prototype that first flew on May 6, 1941, shocked even its test pilots. Powered by the massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, an 18-cylinder radio producing 2,000 horsepower, and equipped with a revolutionary turbo supercharger system, it could maintain full power at 30,000 feet, where German fighters gasped for oxygen. Its 8 wing-mounted .50 caliber Browning M2 machine guns carried 3,400 rounds total, 425 rounds per gun, more ammunition than any fighter in the war. April 15, 1943. The P-47C entered combat operations with the 4th and 56th Fighter Groups. Source: 318th Fighter Squadron Historical Records. The early encounters confirmed every German prejudice. The Thunderbolt couldn't turn with the nimble FW-190. It couldn't climb with the Bf-109 at medium altitudes. Its rate of roll was sluggish. Luftwaffe pilots quickly developed tactics to exploit these weaknesses. Attack from below where the heavy Thunderbolts struggled. Force turning fights where agility trumped firepower. Avoid head-on passes where those 8.50 caliber guns created a wall of lead. The statistics painted a grim picture. In their first month, P-47 units lost 14 aircraft for only 3 confirmed German kills. The 56th Group, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Hubert Zemke, lost 18 pilots and 41 aircraft in training accidents between September 1922 and January 1943. The P-47 was killing more Americans than Germans. But Zemke, a brilliant tactician who would become one of the war's greatest fighter leaders, was learning. He studied every combat report, debriefed every pilot, analyzed every failure. His conclusion: stop trying to dogfight. Don't turn with them. Don't climb with them at low altitude. Use your weight. Use your power. Use your guns. June 26, 1943. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson of the 61st Fighter Squadron, 56th Fighter Group, was flying tail-end position, Purple 4, the most vulnerable spot in the formation. His P-47C, serial number 416235, nickname Half Pint, was about to become legendary. German FW-190s from 2/JG-26 bounced the American formation from above. Johnson's Thunderbolt took the brunt of the initial attack. 21 20mm cannon shells exploded across his aircraft. The canopy shattered, covering him with plexiglass fragments. Hydraulic fluid sprayed into the cockpit. The engine cowling was torn away. Wounded in the nose and leg, Johnson tried to bail out, but discovered the canopy was jammed shut. He was trapped in a dying aircraft 5 miles above France. What happened next defies belief. Despite catastrophic damage, the P-47 continued flying. Johnson, barely able to see through the oil-covered windscreen, pointed the nose toward England and prayed. Then a lone German FW-190 found him, a crippled target limping at less than 170 miles per hour. The German pilot positioned behind Johnson and opened fire with his 4 20mm cannon and 2 13mm machine guns. Johnson could only huddle behind his armor plate. The P-47 absorbed the entire cannon ammunition load, roughly 120 rounds. The German pilot repositioned and fired again with machine guns only. Still, the P-47 flew.
The German pilot pulled alongside. Johnson could see his face clearly through the shattered canopy. Young, blonde, his expression shifting from confidence to confusion to what looked like fear. The pilot shook his head in apparent amazement, gave an informal salute, and departed. Johnson's P-47 landed at RAF Manston with its engine failing on the runway. The crew chief stopped counting holes after reaching 200. 3 of the 4 main longerons, the structural backbone of the fuselage, were shot through. Yet the aircraft had brought him home. HistoryNet. Interview Robert S. Johnson, World War II ace, June 12, 2006. By summer 1943, American pilots had discovered the P-47's true strength: energy fighting. The Thunderbolt's massive weight became a weapon. In a dive from 30,000 feet, nothing could catch it. The P-47 could reach 550 miles per hour, faster than any German fighter even in a vertical dive. This speed could be converted back to altitude in a zoom climb that left pursuing fighters helplessly behind. The tactic became known as boom and zoom, though pilots called it the Thunderbolt turkey shoot. P-47 formations would climb to 30,000 feet or higher, altitudes where the turbo-supercharged double Wasp engine thrived while German fighters struggled. When Luftwaffe interceptors appeared below, the Thunderbolts would roll inverted and dive, building speed until deflection shooting became impossible for German pilots trying to evade. At the bottom of the dive, the 8.50 caliber Groundings would speak. The combined rate of fire, approximately 6,400 rounds per minute when all guns fired simultaneously. The convergence pattern, typically set at 300 yards, created a cone of destruction roughly 6 feet in diameter. Anything caught in that zone faced 100 half-inch projectiles per second, each traveling at 2,900 feet per second. The ammunition itself was devastating. American armor-piercing incendiary, API, rounds used a delayed action fuse that ensured penetration before detonation. The incendiary compound burned at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to ignite aluminum structures. The standard combat load mixed API, API-T, tracer, and standard ball ammunition in patterns designed to both destroy and ignite. And unlike German fighters with limited cannon ammunition, the P-47 could maintain sustained fire for over 30 seconds, an eternity in aerial combat. October 8, 1943. Over Bremen, Germany. Oberstleutnant Hans Philipp, one of the Luftwaffe's most experienced aces with 206 victories, led Jagdgeschwader 1 against a B-17 formation. His FW-190A6 struggled at 28,000 feet, the BMW 801 engine gasping in the thin air. P-47s of the 56th Fighter Group dove on the German formation from 32,000 feet. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson, the same pilot who had survived the June 26th mauling, spotted Phillips' distinctive fighter. Johnson's combat report was clinical. Opened fire at 300 yards, 30-degree deflection. Observed strikes along entire fuselage. Enemy aircraft exploded. No parachute observed. Robert S. Johnson combat records and multiple historical accounts confirming the engagement. Phillips' death shocked the Luftwaffe. If one of their best, a man who had survived over 500 combat missions on both eastern and western fronts, couldn't survive against the Thunderbolts, what chance did average pilots have? By early 1944, the P-47 D-22 variant arrived with Hamilton standard paddle blade propellers, 13-foot diameter blades with broad cords that bit into the air like massive oars. The improvement was immediate. Where earlier Thunderbolts climbed at 2,200 feet per minute at sea level, the paddle blade variants achieved 3,000 feet per minute, matching or exceeding German fighters at most altitudes. The massive propeller also created a distinctive sound, a deep, threatening rumble as the blade tips approached supersonic speeds. German ground troops reported being able to identify approaching P-47s by sound alone, miles before they appeared. They began calling it Donnerschlag, thunderclap. The sound meant death from above. The ultimate demonstration of American industrial might came not in any single battle, but in production statistics that spelled inevitable defeat for Germany. Republic Aviation's Farmingdale, New York factory produced 9,087 P-47s. The Evansville, Indiana plant, built from empty farmland in 1942, produced 6,242. Curtiss-Wright added another 354. Total production, 15,683 P-47 Thunderbolts. At peak production, the Farmingdale factory completed one P-47 every 63 minutes, 24 hours a day. Each aircraft required 65,000 individual parts, 8 miles of electrical wiring, 2,000 pounds of aluminum, and 300 pounds of rubber. The engine alone contained 2,400 components machined to tolerances of thousandths of an inch. Yet American workers, many of them women who had never seen an aircraft before Pearl Harbor, assembled these complex machines with precision exceeding peacetime standards. The ammunition production was equally staggering. Each P-47 sortie required 3,400 rounds of .50 caliber ammunition. With hundreds of P-47s flying daily missions by mid-1944, ammunition consumption exceeded 10 million rounds per month. The Lake City Arsenal in Missouri produced 30 million rounds monthly. Each cartridge was manufactured to tolerances measured in 10,000ths of an inch. By contrast, Germany was losing irreplaceable pilots faster than they could be trained. The average German fighter pilot by early 1945 had less than 30 hours of combat experience. The average P-47 pilot had over 200. American pilots arrived in Europe
with minimum 400 hours of flight training, including 100 hours in advanced fighters. German pilots were entering combat with less than 100 hours total time. When asked about the P-47 in a 1945 interrogation by U.S. intelligence, captured German pilots gave grudging respect. Source referenced in multiple accounts of German POW interrogations. They admired its ruggedness and firepower. They acknowledged it could take punishment that would destroy 3 conventional fighters. But what truly demoralized them was what the P-47 represented: unlimited American production capacity. We lose 10, they build 20, as one German report noted. We lose 1, it's gone forever. By D-Day, June 6, 1944, the P-47 had evolved beyond air superiority fighter into something more terrifying: a fighter-bomber that could carry 2,500 pounds of bombs and 10 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, or HVARs, while retaining full air combat capability. Over 500 P-47s provided air cover for the Normandy invasion, creating an impenetrable umbrella over the beaches. German fighters attempting to reach the landing zones were massacred. Of the handful that broke through, nearly all were destroyed. The Luftwaffe effectively ceased to exist as a fighting force over France. But the P-47's greatest contribution came in ground attack. In June 1944 alone, 9th Air Force Thunderbolts claimed 651 locomotives, 3,847 trucks, 512 tanks and armored vehicles, and 4,553 horse-drawn vehicles destroyed. The Wehrmacht was forced to move only at night, severely hampering their ability to respond to Allied advances. German soldiers developed what medical officers called Yabo fever, fighter-bomber fever, physical symptoms of stress appearing when Thunderbolts were reported in the area. Veterans who had faced Spitfires and Hurricanes without fear became physically ill before missions, knowing P-47s were overhead. The final statistics tell the story. In Europe alone, P-47s achieved 3,752 German aircraft destroyed in aerial combat, plus 3,315 destroyed on the ground. In air-to-air combat, Thunderbolt units maintained a 4.6-to-1 kill ratio while suffering the lowest loss rate of any Allied fighter-bomber. In 1985, at a reunion of German and American fighter pilots in Phoenix, Arizona, former German General Adolf Galland was asked about the P-47. His response captured the complete transformation. "We made a terrible mistake in 1943. We saw this big, heavy fighter and laughed. The Americans didn't try to build a European fighter. They built an American one, designed around production, firepower, and survivability. They understood that in a war of attrition, the plane that could take punishment and deliver devastating firepower would win. They were right." The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt entered combat as an object of German derision in March 1943. By May 1945, it had flown 746,000 combat sorties, dropped 132,482 tons of bombs, fired 135 million rounds of ammunition, and destroyed over 11,000 enemy aircraft and 9,000 locomotives. The Germans had laughed at the ungainly American fighter. By war's end, there were no German pilots left to laugh. The thunder had spoken, and the sky belonged to America. The P-47 Thunderbolt story isn't just about aviation. It's about how industrial capacity, tactical innovation, and unwavering determination changed the course of history. Only a handful of these magnificent machines remain airworthy today. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe to support more deep-dive historical documentaries. Share your thoughts in the comments. Did your family have connections to the P-47? And hit that like button if you believe these stories deserve to be told. Remember, those who fought in these aircraft are leaving us. Their stories must not be forgotten.